In the years after World War II, two nations emerged on the world stage, both young, both fragile, and both searching for allies. One was born from war and hoped the State of Israel, declared in 1948 amid global upheaval. The other was ruled by a king who dreamed of modernization, the Shah of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. At first glance, they had little in common. One was Jewish, one was Persian and Muslim. One fought for survival against Arab neighbors. One ruled a vast empire that saw itself as the heir of Cyrus the Great. And yet, they found each other, not just as friends but as strategic partners. Because in the Cold War era, both nations faced the same threat: radical Arab nationalism. Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser called for pan-Arab unity and the destruction of Israel. Syria and Iraq flirted with Soviet influence. And so, behind closed doors, Israel and Iran began working together. Arms deals, intelligence sharing, even secret military cooperation. But how did this alliance begin? And why did it fall apart so completely? By the 1950s and 60s, both Israel and Iran were locked in a dangerous game of survival. Israel had fought multiple wars to secure its borders. Iran was resisting Soviet pressure from the north and Arab nationalism from the west. And so, an unlikely friendship began to bloom, not out of love, but out of necessity: the secret alliance. This wasn't just diplomacy. It was intelligence sharing, arms deals, covert operations. In the shadow, Mossad, Savak, and even the CIA worked together. Iran became one of Israel's top oil suppliers, providing crude without Arab embargoes. Israeli engineers helped modernize Iranian military equipment. Iranian pilots trained on Israeli tactics. And behind closed doors, there were deeper collaborations still unknown to the public. Why did they cooperate? The answer is simple: mutual survival. Both nations saw themselves as outliers in their region: democratic Israel, surrounded by hostile neighbors, and Iran under the Shah seeking stability in a turbulent world. Both were pro-Western, aligned with the United States and wary of Soviet influence. Both feared radicalism, whether from Islamist movement or Arab nationalism. And both needed each other for defense, energy, and regional strategy. A delicate balance. But this alliance was never perfect. Israel worried about Iran's growing ties with Pakistan. Iran questioned Israel's long-term commitment to regional peace. Still, the partnership endured, because for decades it worked, until one man rose to power in Tehran and changed everything. That man was Ayatollah Khomeini. And when he took control in 1979, the old world collapsed, and the new one was born in fire. In 1979, everything fell apart. The Shah of Iran, Israel's closest ally in the region, was overthrown. His government collapsed under pressure from protests, economic unrest, and religious fervor. And as he fled into exile, one man stepped forward to reshape Iran forever: Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. The fall of the Shah. For decades, the Shah had ruled with an iron fist, modernizing his country, building wealth, and maintaining strong ties with the West. But not everyone loved him. To many Iranians, especially religious leaders and the poor, he was a puppet of America, a tyrant who crushed dissent with Savak, his brutal secret police. As protests grew, so did chaos. Students burned American flags. Clerics called for Islamic rule. And in early 1979, it was over. The Shah left. Khomeini returned. And the world watched as Iran became something new, an Islamic republic, with one clear enemy: Israel, from ally to enemy overnight. The change was instant. One day, Israeli engineers were working inside Iranian military bases. The next, they were labeled Zionist spies. Mossad pulled out, arms deals stopped, diplomats fled, and in Tehran, protesters stormed the Israeli embassy, tearing down its flag and burning files. At his first speeches, Ayatollah Khomeini declared, "Israel is an occupying regime. It must be wiped off the map." He called Zionism a disease. He praised martyrdom. He supported groups like Hezbollah, which would become Israel's deadliest enemy. The shadow war begins. But even as public relations crumbled, the real war moved underground. Mossad began tracking Iranian nuclear scientists. Israel started targeting arms shipments to Hezbollah. Cyber warfare replaced diplomacy. And in the shadows, the conflict never truly ended, because while the world saw a new Iran rise from revolution, Israel knew the real danger had just begun. And now, the two nations stood on opposite sides of history, no longer allies, now enemies. When the dust settled after the Iranian Revolution, one thing was clear: the alliance was dead. But the conflict, it had just begun, not on battlefields, not in public view, but in the shadows. Mossad versus revolutionary Iran. Mossad didn't stop working the moment diplomatic ties were cut. In fact, it became more active than ever. Israeli spies infiltrated Iranian institutions. They recruited informants. They tracked nuclear scientists. And when they could, they struck silently. In the years that followed, key Iranian nuclear researchers began dying under mysterious circumstances. Car bombs, assassinations, poisonings. Some were clearly targeted. Others still debated. Iran strikes back. While Israel worked in silence, Iran moved in the open, supporting groups directly hostile to Israel. Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad all received weapons, training, and funding from Tehran. Rockets flew across borders, Tunnels were dug beneath Gaza. Missiles were launched from Lebanon. And behind it all, Iran. The Islamic Republic no longer saw Israel as just an enemy, but as the center of everything it opposed. Western influence, secularism, Zionism. And so it waged war not just through politics, but through proxies, cyber wars, and silent sabotage. By the 2000s, the battlefield had changed. No longer just about guns and spies, now it was about code. In 2010, a mysterious computer worm infected Iran's nuclear centrifuges. That worm, Stuxnet, widely believed to be a joint operation by Israel and the United States. It destroyed nearly 1,000 centrifuges without firing a single shot. Iran responded in kind. Cyber attacks against Israeli infrastructure, hacking attempts on water systems, digital sabotage. This was no longer a regional conflict. This was a global war fought in silence, assassinations in the shadows. One by one, Iran's top nuclear scientists began to disappear, or worse, die. Some were killed in car explosions, others gunned down in daylight. Among them was Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, Iran's most important nuclear scientist, assassinated in 2020. Iran blamed Mossad. Israel said nothing. But the message was clear. Even without formal war, this conflict had no rules anymore. The alliance is gone. The Cold War era cooperation, a memory. What remains is a bitter rivalry one that now threatens to explode into open war. The nuclear shadow. For decades, Iran has pursued nuclear technology. It called it peaceful energy. But many feared it was building towards something far more dangerous. Israel saw this not just as a threat, but as an existential one. In secret speeches, Israeli leaders said, "We will never allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon." And behind closed doors, they worked to stop it. Sabotage, cyber attacks, assassinations. But still, Iran pushed forward, enriching uranium, building underground facilities, and testing missiles. And in recent years, it came closer than ever before. Diplomacy or deadlock? Asterisk. In 2015, world powers struck a deal, the Iran Nuclear Agreement, or JCPOA. Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief, and for a time, the world breathed easier. Until 2018, when the United States pulled out and Israel cheered, the deal began to unravel, and Iran, no longer bound by limits, began expanding its nuclear capabilities again. With each new development, the tension rose, and so did the fear. Proxy wars and border tensions. Asterisk. While headlines speak of diplomacy, real battles are being fought elsewhere. In Syria, Israeli jets strike Iranian-backed forces. In Lebanon, Hezbollah builds up missile stockpiles pointing straight at Tel Aviv. In Gaza, Hamas receives weapons and funds from Tehran. In Yemen, Houthi rebels launched drone attacks on Saudi and Israeli interests with Iranian backing. This is no longer just a Cold War between two nations. It is a heating regional war with global consequences. What happens if war breaks out? Asterisk, asterisk. A full-scale war between Israel and Iran would be unlike anything seen before. Not just conventional armies clashing, but cyber warfare, drones, missile strikes, and even nuclear fears. Israel's Iron Dome defends cities. Iran's ballistic missiles reach deep into enemy territory. And if one side crosses the line, the other won't hesitate to respond. Some say it's already happening, just without formal declarations. Others warn that what we're seeing now is only the beginning. Once there was quiet diplomacy, trade, intelligence sharing, even mutual respect. Today, there is silence broken only by explosion. What happened to the alliance between Israel and Iran? Did politics destroy it? Or was it always temporarily built on survival, not trust? Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. This conflict is far from over, and how it ends will shape the future of the Middle East and beyond. In 2025, the world is watching closely because Israel and Iran are no longer just rivals. They are locked in what many call a shadow war, with moments that have brought them dangerously close to open conflict. The Gaza War, Iran's influence behind Hamas. The war in Gaza didn't begin in October 2023. It was shaped by years of Iranian support for Hamas, weapons, training, funding, and when Hamas launched its brutal attack on the 7th of October, many saw the hand of Tehran behind it. Since then, Israel has responded with full force while Iran continues to arm militant groups across the region. The question now isn't just about Gaza, it's about whether this escalates into something much bigger. Direct strikes, April 2024 and June 2024 escalation. In April 2024, Iran launched a massive drone and missile strike against Israel, one of the largest ever recorded from Tehran. Over 300 drones and missiles were fired. Most were intercepted by Israeli and US-led forces. But the message was clear: we can reach you. Then, in June 2024, an Israeli airstrike hit a building in Damascus, killing several top Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders. Iran called it an act of war. Israel said it was self-defense. The cycle continued, and the world held its breath. Cyber warfare, assassinations, and missile drills. Asterisk, asterisk. But not all battles are fought with bombs. In recent years, Both sides have stepped up cyber attacks targeting infrastructure, energy systems, and even water supplies. Meanwhile, Mossad continues to target Iranian nuclear scientists, and Iran hunts down Israelis abroad. On military bases, both nations prepare for the unthinkable full-scale war. Israel runs simulations of multi-front conflict. Iran drills for long-range missile strikes and regional war. Diplomacy or destruction. Asterisk, asterisk. Despite rising tensions, some still hope for diplomacy. China brokered a surprise reconciliation between Iran and Saudi Arabia in 2023, showing new alliances forming without American influence. Could that lead to peace with Israel? Or is the dream already shattered? One thing is certain. The Middle East is more fragile than it's been in decades, and Israel and Iran stand at the center of it all. Is full war inevitable? This documentary began with an alliance that few remember. It ends with a rivalry that threatens to reshape the future. From secret cooperation during the Cold War to covert assassinations, cyber warfare, and real battlefield clashes, this is how history unfolded. And now, as we speak, the world watches, waiting to see if the next move brings peace or war. Because in the Middle East, history doesn't just shape the past, it builds the future.